pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, On behalf of the Board of Education, we want to welcome you here tonight. And in an effort to ensure our meeting runs smoothly with minimal disruptions, please note the following requirements for entrance and attendance. Masks must be worn indoors at all times, regardless of vaccination status. Masks must be properly worn to cover the nose and mouth. Disposable masks are available at the reader's desk for visitors who need them. Refusal to comply with our universal masking requirement will result in denial of access to the building and future subsequent meetings. To reiterate, anyone refusing to wear a mask will not be given access and will be encouraged to view the meeting virtually through our live streams on Zoom. Thank you in advance for your cooperation with our ongoing efforts to keep our district safe and healthy. Thank you. So to start the meeting, I would like Mr. Giamardo.
Yeah, so obviously we all learned that Mr. Kincaid lost his dad earlier, and some of you may know that Greg and I grew up together. We were childhood friends, went to grade school together, and I knew his dad very well growing up. Just in brief, that he was an amazing teacher for 33 years in the Spencerport schools. Math teacher, I had him in the middle school. Those are tough years, right? I know he was an incredible husband, a great dad to Greg and his sister Kelly, and a grandpa to many, many grandkids. He was the mayor of Spencerport, a town councilman, and a coach. And like I said, I have very fond memories of Mr. Kincaid. So if we can have a moment of silence for him, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Mr. Bracken, second. Mr. Stone, all in favor? I vote. Thank you. 6-0. Thanks, Kate. Sorry. Okay. And privilege of the floor. The Board of Education meetings must be held in public to conduct the district's business. Meetings in public are not for engaging in community dialogue or board interaction. Privilege of the floor section of this meeting is time for the Board of Education to listen to Spencerport community members. Spencerport Board of Education invites public comments. Individuals signing up to speak in advance. Individuals agree to limit their comments to 5 minutes. We ask that individuals state their name and address before their comments and utilize the podium to address the board. Although the board will not directly respond individual comments at this time, points will be brought to attention of the board and will be taken under consideration for future response or action. In order to comply with the laws related to confidentiality, we ask that issues related to specific districts, personnel, or students be brought up to the attention of the Board of Education privately. The board reserves the right to terminate speakers' privilege on the floor if their comments are over 5 minutes, repetitive, inappropriate for the discussion in open forum, or not under the control of the Board of Education. I will set a timer that will chime 30 minutes before the time ends. And at this time, I would like to invite Mr. Donald Bardeen up to speak. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Donald Bardeen. I live at 6 Ridge Meadows Drive in Spencerport. And my phone number is 585-414-9987. The first thing I want to do tonight is, as I explained the very first time I spoke with this board, I'm new to this process. I haven't been involved in the educational system in Spencerport or anywhere prior to the last couple of months. And I'm trying to learn how to access information from the school system so that I can analyze it, come to my own conclusions, and move it. That's what I'm in the process of doing. I have here a letter that Mr. Hutton sent me in response to the questions I asked at the last board meeting. And without getting into a whole lot of detail, we could have a whole other discussion on the response in itself. But that discussion would not have anything to do with anything that we're here trying to accomplish. So I want to acknowledge you responded to all my questions today, and my responses or feelings about those are immaterial as far as I'm concerned. I want to reiterate that one of the first things I was trying to accomplish, and this is my naivety, if you will, if nothing else, was I wanted to establish an effect. What I thought was, and I still think it's the case for the most part, I really do, that we're all on the same page. So the questions I initially asked were really designed to simply state that we are all on the same page. And what happened was, and I'm not going to get into the specifics, but because some or the whole board might have taken offense, the questions were asked, and then the subsequent questions were asked because of the initial response. I apologize for that. And that was not my intention. But what I would like to tell you is that moving forward, I had one of the suggestions that Kevin made to me was to contact Kristen Fleeting. And I did. I called her, she called me back. I called her for phone tap. She talked to me today. And we're moving forward. And she, by the way, Kevin directed me to the website for the answers to the questions. I wouldn't mention the words, but as I read what you wrote in there, so true. That you say one word and this person defines it this way, this person defines it this way, this person defines it. I would like to go on record and say, at least, and I haven't really thought about it a great deal, but I read the definitions of those words on your website. I don't see the problem with them. I really don't. But that being the case, like you said, those words are defined differently all over the country, or all over the school, all over the school district. So anyway, what my intention is, please direct me if I'm wrong. My intention going forward is to, as I research, I'm going to start with Kristen, and then looking on the subject matter of this talk. One of the initial problems that I have with the way we've designed our educational system, okay, is that it's seeming very difficult for me as I have been a parent in the Spencerport School District. I've been a parent in the Hilton School District. I'm not a parent of any students in the school district today. As a non-parent in the Spencerport School District, I find it very difficult to obtain specific information about any coursework curriculum that is being used in the school district. And one of the things one thought I'd like to leave with the school board is that I think it would be, Kevin mentioned the rights of authors and the and then it's not important, but it's very hard for me to get that information. I don't know what parents do. If I was a parent today and I had a student in the Spencerport School District and I was unable to physically take whatever material he was being used, given to be educated by it, and actually read it myself and determine if it was okay or not okay, I would be concerned. So I don't know what that situation is. The board might want to think about that. But as I'm going through the websites, both the New York State website and the Spencerport School website, I'm seeing a multitude of things that cause me to have some concern. So what I was plan on doing going forward is to share those thoughts or conclusions that I'm getting as I'm doing my research. Whether you respond to them, to me, is not what I after. In fact, I would prefer, unless I ask you specifically for a response to whatever I'm talking about, please do not respond to me. This is not about me. This is about us and the students in Spencerport. So if I say something or I cover something in my thinking or I raise a thought in your minds, please respond to it here, not to me. That's all. And with that, I'll sit down for now. I'll have a lot more going forward. And please understand this. My objective, and no matter what I say or how I feel, we're all in fact, you mentioned in one of your responses that we all come from different places, different backgrounds, we have different views on things. Yeah, that's called America. That's where we live. That's a good thing. So even if I say something or do something that offends you, and I've been in similar positions, but not to the extent you are, in a governmental environment, but you have accepted a public position. Well, if I, as part of the public, say something that offends you or you totally disagree with or even angers you, take a deep breath and forgive me, and we'll move on. Keep in mind, we're all here about the same thing, and that is the students here in the Spencerport district. That's a comment.
Right. And the offer is still open to meet. The offer is still open to meet with you if you'd like.
Oh, but, yeah, I see no advantage in that. Yeah, I appreciate that, by the way, but I see no advantage in that, because I don't have any wish to pursue any questions I might have regarding what we talked about that. It's not this time. If I do, I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any amendments? Okay, next item on our agenda, do we have any students? So, motion to approve the consent agenda. Lori, second Gary, all in favor? Hit the. Board of Education reports, President's report, communication. The one thing I want to do is share that we as a district are really paying attention to what's going on with COVID numbers, and we're Superintendent Swan has been working diligently with Monroe County, and no one's been hiding from this. We've all been paying attention and taking things seriously. So really, that's all I have. I haven't done much, and I hope everyone enjoyed their holiday time and had some time off to enjoy themselves. Mr. Brackett, do you have anything?
Just, you should be receiving an invitation to the MCSBA Legislative Affairs Breakfast, which is the first weekend in February. The formal invites to our legislators and such went out today, and you should be receiving a link to sign up for that if you wish to go. At this time, we are still planning advocacy trip to Albany in March, although it'll be not so much to go up and do a lot of question and answer with them, there's more to continue our relationships with some of those folks that we've been working with over the years. So, tomorrow is Ledge Affairs. Okay. And then tomorrow night is the leadership meeting, but I understand. So, that's it.
Gary, where's that breakfast gonna be?
I think we're having it at the DoubleTree this year.
Henrietta.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Leah, if you have an opportunity to go to that, and basically, I don't think it's just.
No, it's not. It's
It's not just school board members. It's an opportunity for us to get in front of the legislature and hear them, let them hear us firsthand, and always been very productive. And it's great to be able to meet some of our county and state legislators and occasionally federal.
I think he's coming. I think Joe's coming.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
So it's a great way to show solidarity and what we need for education. So if everyone can make it, that would be great. Okay, Lori? Clear?
Just real quick, last night I attended a Zoom meeting for the Spencerport Education Foundation meeting. Miss Sylvester invited me, so I went to that. It was a great event. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year to everyone in our community as well. Just to recap, we've had 2 very busy, wonderful days. Wonderful to be back. Students are, I think, happy to be back and interacting with their teachers and their friends. As Kevin alluded, a tremendous amount of information coming out from the Department of Health, the CDC, last week. We're trying to communicate to our community in a way that we're pushing out tangible pieces of information, not to be overwhelming to the community, but trying to synthesize all of the information that's coming out and what is the most necessary information that they need to know. So appreciative of the community's response to the testing kits that we've passed out. Many families came in our distribution site. We passed out another few thousand tests today. I have had parents call me and say, you know, my child was asymptomatic. We used the test. We found that they were positive. So the community is being responsible and really committing to this process as well. And in the weeks to come, we're going to start looking at or continuing to look at our numbers, the way in which we're handling or managing more large scale events and making sure that we're modifying those to have appropriate size numbers. We are consistently looking at our staffing and our attendance rates. You know, I'm often asked, is there a number where we would have to close schools or go to remote? And there really isn't a solid number. We are in constant conversation with our cabinet and our building administrators around what our staffing looks like on a day-to-day basis and the level of coverage that we have for classes and making sure that we can operate in a safe manner for our children. And now it's in that conversation that we really would make those determinations. Right now, our attendance rates are not at any type of point where we would consider needing to move remote. But as the board knows, and through our extended COVID response team, we certainly have our contingency plans set and would be ready to implement those if we needed to. So I want to just, you know, confirm for the board and the community that if we had to, we are certainly ready to respond to that. So moving forward, we have some wonderful speakers today. As I was thinking about our meeting this evening, this is an instructional area that I'm really excited for the board to have a presentation on, as we're going to be talking about our content-focused coaches and the impact that they're having and working with our teachers in the day-to-day and making sure that we can address students' individual needs. So I'm going to ask Ty, who's really supervising and leading this initiative, to invite his team up and to introduce his team.
Thanks, Ms. Swan. So good evening, everyone. I'd like to just call up, if I could, our Director of Curriculum, Kristen Pelini, Middle School Principal, Jim Santola, and High School Assistant Principal, Jessica Silsby. Also in attendance is one of our content-focused coaches, who's also a social studies teacher leader. That's Frank Caparello. So really appreciate Frank taking the time to join us this evening as well. With that, I'm going to turn over to Kristen. We're going to do a similar approach to what we provided last month with the MTSS overview at the K-5 level. We're going to replicate this process, and Kristen, Jess, and Jim provide an overview, provide you an opportunity to ask us any questions at the end.
I'm just going to look to Corey, make sure we're sharing okay. Thank you for having us here this evening to talk to you about the work that our content-focused coaches have been doing in the middle school and the high school. We're excited to show you some of their work today. We first are thinking about content-focused coaches. I think it's important to look at the why. Having content-focused coaches allows teachers to collaborate on a variety of different ways to support students. One of which is to analyze student work, to find gaps where there may be some potential learning loss, some opportunities to adjust tier 1 instruction so that instruction that all students are getting, based on any gaps they might be seeing, and also to provide individual support to students who need it as well. Content-focused coaching allows our coaches to work directly with teachers to provide embedded professional learning right in their work day, personalized to the needs of the teacher and the students that they serve. Additionally, our content-focused coaches are instrumental in helping teachers work with district initiatives like culturally responsive education and blended learning as well. The content-focused coaches operate in a variety of different roles, so they're fulfilling that why in many different ways. One of which is a formal coaching cycle, and we'll give you a glimpse into that in just a moment. And other ways that our content-focused coaches are supporting teachers include pretty much anything teachers request. Some of those requests have been to sit down and look collaboratively at student work together to determine next teaching moves and support for students. Sometimes it's as simple as brainstorming a way to do a lesson in a different way that might be more engaging. Content-focused coaches are co-teaching, they're co-planning with teachers, they're helping them design specific blended learning lessons. We have curriculum that is moving towards new standards, and we have curriculum that is new with different unit implementation, and our coaches are assisting their colleagues in those ways as well. The coaching cycle is a formal process. This is one of the ways that our content-focused coaches are learning to very systematically and very strategically support their colleagues and collectively build capacity among both the coaches and the teachers. So I'm going to take you through a video, and I'm going to fast forward a little bit through it. But what you're seeing here is going to be a snippet from Rick Hepler, who is one of our content-focused coaches. Pardon me. And he's working directly with Kim Fluick, who is a University of Rochester consultant. We're starting mid-conversation here with Rick and Kim working on a design session where they're planning together the lesson they are going to co-teach. And let me just make sure that I'm sharing my screen with our community at home as well.
I mean, I would be comfortable transitioning into the activity, like,
Yep.
we're gonna be experiencing that, but if you wanted to transition from here to here, that might be useful. I think I wouldn't mind. I mean, I think that's an easy transition. And I wouldn't mind seeing how you transition from them getting their data and
Yep.
sharing their data and then transitioning into the what do you think is happening.
So a couple different things you're seeing in the first few seconds of that clip. One, they're planning who's going to do what during the lesson so that they don't interfere or interrupt the flow of the lesson. But also you heard Rick say, I'd really like to see how you do this. And so there's that opportunity for right within the lesson for a teacher to experience some modeling from a coach and then also to teach as well and get some feedback. So opportunity to learn right, again, job embedded during the lesson that students are engaged in. So we'll give you a peek inside the classroom. Now, Board of Education members with access to the PowerPoint, you can watch all 5 minutes of this video if you would like to, but we're just showing you some of the highlights here. So here you'll see both Rick, our content-focused coach, and Kim, our consultant, paired up together as they move through the classroom. And again, that helps them to learn from one another and also elevates their ability to debrief afterwards because they're experiencing the lesson in a similar fashion.
You know, still a solid, it's just breaking apart,
Okay.
but we're using a
Okay.
chemical reaction,
Okay.
but nothing, there's no state change. And so when I think of like molecules, I think of like when they're solids, they're together, when they're liquids, they separate, and then gas, they go everywhere. And this, if it's still a solid, then how far away does the molecules move? I didn't say that was the thing.
Is this your question? And for you, you're trying to wrap your head around what's happening at the molecular level in terms of movement, physical movement, right? Okay, so that's a great question. We're going to leave that. And that's.
And so this lesson is longer than 45 seconds. So that's just a little snip of what it looks like. And then you move into the debriefing session where again, the coach and the teacher get back together and they analyze student work and they look for trends, possible misconceptions, and they plan the next steps in instruction to address what they're seeing in student work.
And that,
then I think there was a whole lot of questions about bonding, and I think there seems to be some sort of misconception that the mass is changing based on simply bonds forming or breaking,
yeah,
not necessarily based on the number of atoms and the introduction of new atoms.
right.
At least based on their drawings, that's what that seemed to be. But those ones down the left side are based on changing changes in bonds,
Right.
bond formation, or bonds.
Really that it,
So again, that's just a sneak peek into what a coaching cycle looks like. And it is something that our content-focused coaches are currently involved in as the teacher to experience it first themselves. And then Jess will be talking to how they're going to turn to that to their colleagues a little bit later in our presentation.
As we think back to last spring, when we talked and we were thinking about this program, we identified some areas of opportunity that our content-focused coach program would address to develop alignment in the areas of small group instruction, blended learning, to increase opportunities for collaboration amongst our teachers, to build capacity amongst our teachers to support teaching and learning, and to strengthen our instructional system, specifically for Cosgrove, to address our TSI designation. So a request last spring was the internal hiring of 4 instructional coaches at the 6-8 level and also at the 9-12 level. 1 instructional coach in the area of core areas of ELA, math, social studies, and science. 3-year appointment, and then our coaches will continue to teach at least 1 section in their designated field. Which brings us to our content-focused coaches at Cosgrove Middle School. Frank Caparella, our social studies coach. Rob Allen, our ELA coach. Matt Amoroso is our math coach. Matt is also a master teacher in some of the confines of that master teacher program. Matt was required to be in the classroom 0.6 of the time, 60% of the time. And so because of that, we split his coach position into 2 positions. Matt is a 0.2 coach, and then Liz Corelli is a 0.2 math coach. And then Laura Sosarenko is our science coach. At the high school, our content-focused coaches, Kristen Cochiera for math, Phil Gerhardt for social studies, Christina Bealey for ELA, and Rick Hepler for science.
Coaching creates an authentic and purposeful process for our teachers to engage in reflective conversations around instruction and pedagogy. And as our teachers find success, really helps us to establish a culture that embraces coaching, feedback, and a growth mindset. So we've begun this shift with training our content-focused coaches and a series of professional learning delivered by our U of R consultants. This work has been based in the book Agents of Change by Lucy West and Tony Cameron. I'll show you a little bit more about our coaching cycle timeline in just a minute that Kristen alluded to. And we've also developed a series of tools and resources to really help make our coaches accessible to our teachers as we roll this transition out. During one of the recent trainings, our consultants shared with our coaches that it's really something that, even elite athletes access coaches. And so even our most veteran teachers can really take advantage of the feedback and the growth mindset that our coaches can offer. As Kristen explained a little bit more about the coaching cycle, this is our coaching cycle timeline. And this was established after working through some of the different trainings to help our coaches feel really confident in becoming leaders of these coaching cycles. And so we really felt it was important to give them time to learn and to become confident while still prioritizing their time in the classroom to help them support teachers and students with the unfinished learning as a priority right now. So you'll see that this is a scaffolded transition. So they are working, as you saw, Rick and Kim together before Rick will then try his own turn at leading a colleague through a coaching cycle with him support, and then ultimately working independently to do that on his own. These are some of the different tools and systems that we established, again, just to really make our coaches accessible to our teachers. Again, this is something new, and our teachers have a lot on their plate this year. We wanted to try a different variety of resources to support them. So we had posters and bookmarks that really just tried to communicate what it was that coaches could do for our teachers, and a variety of different places that we made that accessible to them. So you'll see Schoology supports, Microsoft Forms that again really kind of build in that communication of what it is that a content-focused coach might help our teachers with, as well as different places that we made that accessible, SharePoint. And then finally, a Microsoft booking tool that we developed to make sure that, again, it was conducive to teacher schedules and made it as seamless as possible for them to take advantage of these resources. And our coaches are really reaching out frequently to remind teachers of what they can do to support them as they work through this year. And as you will continue to see throughout the presentation, our coaches are really already immersed in this work, and we're already able to experience some of the short-term and long-term benefits of having this coaching program implemented. So our coaches are in the classrooms working with students, and then they're also working with our teachers and content teams to help build their capacity, again, with looking forward towards more detailed analysis of unfinished learning and ways that we can support students and identify their needs. And then finally, that continuity of learning that our coaches will help ensure as students move and transition from grade level to grade level as we continue to work with unfinished learning.
One of the tools that we're looking forward to using to take a look at our data is eDoctrina, which is an assessment platform. It is a platform that allows you to create, to assign, and to score assessments. We've had common assessments, both formative assessments as well as summative assessments, so the big unit tests as well as the small assessments along the way that are common in, let's say, English 1 or in geometry. However, what we haven't had to this point is a tool that we could use to easily gain data, to analyze it and to make it actionable in a way that we could identify potential gaps in the curriculum where we need some adjustments, where we could identify certain groups of students who may need differentiated instruction. eDoctrina provides a variety of different reports so that we can continue to administer those same assessments, but gather more actionable and easily accessible data from them. So this is our timeline for implementing this particular platform. We're finalizing assessments right now, working with teacher leaders to determine where the summative and formative assessments for each course currently are as far as completion and consistency, and they're really in good shape. Our teacher leaders have done a fabulous job. This summer, we will have teachers work to input the summative assessments into the platform so we can use the platform for those summative, those large unit tests that happen consistently throughout the year. And when I say test or I say assessment, please know it might be multiple choice, fill in the blank, traditional sense. This can also measure projects, it can measure written assignments. However you typically scored in the past to gather information, you can use rubrics, they can be performance-based assessments. So when I say test or assessment, please know that we're not reducing everything to multiple choice or to true-false questions. We'll follow a similar cycle where next summer we'll work to put the formative assessments into eDoctrina as well. And then by the 23-24 school year, any common assessments in the curriculum that would be given among multiple sections of the same class will be administered using eDoctrina so that we can gather that data to have conversations around instructional practices. So this is just a quick snapshot of two of the many reports that eDoctrina offers. These are some reports that our K-5 teachers are using pretty consistently right now within the platform for their math assessment. So over on the left-hand side, you see an item analysis, which is a report that our teachers are very familiar with, but we might not necessarily have a way to garner that quickly at this time. So what you see here is, here's the question. If you were to click on this, It would pop the question up for you, so you don't have to go back into the test. You might want to take a look at why you had 10 students in the classroom select the correct answer, but you have 2 students select the incorrect answer. It tells you what the incorrect answer they selected was. Over here on this side, you'll see 3 different columns. This is me as a teacher, here's my class. Here's that same test data across the school that I teach in. Here it is across the district, which is obviously interesting for someone who defer to me to see what it looks like across the district in 4th grade. Not necessary at the middle school or at the high school, because you're all in one building there. All of this is dynamic. So for instance, if I want to know who picked letter C here for this answer, and I click on that, it would show me the students who chose that answer. I only have access to that data from my class, however, and can't click on the school-wide or district-wide. So that's one example of a report that UW Community can run. So I give the test, we score it, and I have this information immediately after the assessment is scored. This is a little bit more of a sophisticated report. This is called the Student Standards Report. So all the students' names here are hidden underneath this blue. What you see across the top here, these are the math standards. So each column is one singular standard. This is a report that we pulled. So you're going to pretend that I'm a 4th grade teacher. I just got 22 students assigned to me. I went in and grabbed all of their 3rd grade math final assessments so I could see where they ended 3rd grade. So this is my class that I have assigned to me to start the year. And I can immediately see areas of need, like, oh, this might be a standard that students may be lacking. Let me take a look at where that comes up in my curriculum and see if I need to do a little bit of a pre-assessment or need to see where students are. So from an instructional standpoint, it can inform what you're doing with Tier 1 instruction. This is, everything in here is clickable as well. So if I wanted to click on this right here, it would tell me the 3 points the student earned, the ones they missed, the assessment where it was located, the question, and obviously we know it's under this particular standard. I can drill down further by using this right here, which would give me a student specific report that would show me standard by standard for that content area. If they're red, orange, yellow, green, I can click into that. So pretty much you get the gist that we can find a lot of information here. We just don't currently have a tool that teachers can use quickly and easily. And that's where we're looking to go. So our content-focused coaches can start to analyze data with teachers, can assist them in breaking the data down, or to say, okay, I know they're coming in weak in this other area. Can you help me with a plan of attack for how I can assist students moving forward? So those are all sorts of tools that our coaches and teachers would be able to use collaboratively as well. So let's hear a little bit from our content-focused coaches. They were gracious enough to agree to let us videotape them. So let me just make sure I'm sharing the correct video here.
The other coaches and myself have been working with the Warner School of Education during the first 4 months of school to basically learn what it means and what it takes to be a content-focused coach. The mentors that we have been tremendous. They're so knowledgeable and been so helpful. Been like a sponge through all the sessions that we've had so far. We've already attended a number of half-day professional development activities sponsored by the Warner School. We're currently doing a book study with, using the content-focused coaches manual. It's called Agents of Change. And we also recently completed a coaching cycle, which has 3 parts to it, where the coach and our mentors actually work together to co-plan a lesson, then co-teach it, and then meet together afterwards to reflect on some of the finer details of the lesson.
With the CFC position, I've had the opportunity to work closely with my 6th grade math colleagues, and we've been diving into our math curriculum and instruction to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our diverse learners. We've specifically looked into some of those learning gaps that have occurred based on assessment data and pre-assessment data, into our units. And then we've modified our blended learning studios and our resources to meet the needs of these learners.
One of the goals I set for myself this year was to incorporate more blended learning into my lessons throughout the year, and partaking in the coaching cycle with Frank really helped me to hone in on those skills. We were able to take a closer look at the blended learning model. We were able to co-plan a lesson, analyze data, and then in the end we were able to reflect on the outcomes of the lesson. Being able to co-plan and co-teach the lesson, there were a ton of benefits that kids took away from that. They were given differentiated instruction as well as honed in skills during the lesson from both of us. Reflecting on the lesson, the students said they enjoyed being able to move around the classroom as well as like the attention from two teachers. They were able to tell us at the end how the Neolithic era was a turning point in history. I've learned how to efficiently and effectively execute a blended learning lesson that will benefit not only the students but the teacher as well.
It's an extremely powerful position. I absolutely love being in the classroom and watching my colleagues teach. It's something I have never been able to do. I am learning as much from them, I believe, as they are from me, and the collaboration efforts are tremendous and only students will benefit. As the content-focused coach for the ELA department at the high school, I'm afforded the opportunity to work with teachers in my department. This could not have come at a better time. We are currently implementing brand new curriculum and the next generation standards in grades 9 through 11, focusing on genre-based writing and reading of mentor texts. I have been able to be in classrooms to co-plan with teachers and implement instruction in a co-teaching model, and also to reflect on those lessons and determine best practices and what needs to be improved.
So we heard from our coaches in that video, and then what follows on the next few slides is some feedback from some of our teachers. So from a Cosgrove Middle School science teacher and Cosgrove Middle School English teacher, give you a second just to kind of read through what was shared with me in terms of their experience working with our coach. What I really enjoy as I read through these and as I spoke with teachers was hearing about that co-planning, that co-teaching, that co-facilitating, and how that collaboration time was used to develop lessons that ultimately are aligned with our standards and meet the needs of our each and every learner. On the next slide, you'll see some feedback from a Cosgrove Middle School social studies teacher and also a math teacher, just sharing many of the same experience of that ability to work with a colleague in a different way that maybe we haven't had a chance to work with before, and the ability to really hone in on our blended model to really refine those skills and to bring that to fruition. So this is some feedback from our four Cosgrove teachers.
And again, it's tremendous that the work that our coaches have done in such a short period of time. And I know they all wanted to be here, but obviously there being so many of them and the circumstances, we hope that these videos are helping kind of capture the essence of what they're doing. But they're just doing amazing work. And you can see here the impact that they're having on students and teachers' experiences this year already. And we just know that that's going to continue as they continue to progress through their time in this role. So again, you know, there's all those same things highlighted as Mr. Santola mentioned, but really just that impact they're having is so amazing. So again, I know you guys have access to these and can look at them, so I won't read all of those to you. But we just wanted to highlight a few of those for you today. And again, when we asked for testimonials, we received many more than this, and so teachers were eager to share their experiences. And again, we look forward to continuing to see what our coaches can do.
So with that, we again just have one more video to highlight for you the work that they are doing.
Our content-focused coaches are deeply rooted in the pedagogy and curriculum specific to their certification areas. Here, you see Rob Allen, the English content-focused coach at Cosgrove Middle School, facilitating a conversation with 6th grade colleagues about potential changes to the Literacy 6 course that all Spencerport students take. Through collaborative activities, Rob is able to engage his colleagues in setting a vision and mission for the literacy course, specifically as it relates to content and skills students will develop across 3 courses in grade 6, English Language Arts, Literacy, and Library Skills. Content-focused coaches are working to address unfinished learning in a variety of ways. One such way is by co-teaching with colleagues. This can take many different forms. In this clip, you'll see the use of differentiated groups, separately led by the teacher and the content-focused coach. Kristen Koshera, our high school math content-focused coach, is using small group instruction to assist a subset of students in Nancy Leisner's math course. The small group approach allows both teachers to address content and skills specific to student needs. Through the collaborative efforts of Mrs. Leisner and Mrs. Koshera, student needs are identified using assessment data and targeted instruction is provided. As you see in this video, students are receiving timely and relevant feedback to improve their understanding and application of mathematical concepts. Students in Frank Caffarella's middle school social studies class are engaged in small group and independent work, while Mr. Caffarella collaborates with a U of R consultant, Rhiannon White. As part of a coaching cycle, Mr. Caffarella and Mrs. White have decided that Mrs. White will bookmark the lesson when she is not directly involved in providing instruction to students. The bookmark notes will be used in a debriefing session with Mr. Caffarella after the lesson to reflect on practices and analyze student work. The debriefing allows the coach and teacher to determine future instructional practices to improve learning outcomes for all students. Here, Mrs. White is conferring with Phil Gerhardt during a co-taught lesson in a high school social studies classroom. Our content-focused coaches are learning a variety of coaching moves so they can in turn provide their colleagues with personalized, embedded professional development opportunities.
So as we look ahead with what lies in front of us with our content-focused coaches, you'll see a variety of different things. So obviously they're hard at work in a lot of different ways. They will continue to work with teachers to implement coaching cycles, to engage in those with more and more of their colleagues who are willing to open their doors, and also expanding their services to meet teachers' needs. They've been extremely responsive to teachers who say, I don't want a full coaching cycle, but can you help me with this? Or you helped me with this, and now let's do a full coaching cycle, because that seems like that's really going to be helpful. Some of the things that we're looking at are how do we use time in the 22-23 school year, and can we be strategic in ways with our middle school and high school schedule to allow for more opportunities for collaboration to occur. We're obviously looking, as you know, at transition to MTSS, and Cosgrove is actively working in a learning and information gathering part of that process. Our coaches are going to continue to help our teachers in addressing unfinished learning, using common assessments and analyzing student work to make plans moving forward for groups of students as well as whole class instruction. Are there any questions you have for us? That's not me, by the way. She's tall.
So I was gonna ask if that was you, but you answered my question. So, when this all started back when we talked about this, I personally had a lot of wonderings, but watching that video just showed me that the amount of traction I think these kids are getting with the situation was obvious that it's working very well. I saw that just from my standpoint. And secondly, another thing that I realized, from Mr. Zinkowicz to Santola and you directors and APs and the coaches and even the teachers, that I truly and sincerely see a level of collegiality where all of you are equal, right? In that classroom for the kids. I'm not seeing a vertical ladder, if you will. I just see that all of you, labels are set aside, positions set aside, and what are all of you doing, all the way through for these kids. Those two things stood out to me with attraction, just how collegial collaborative you guys are. And thirdly, question, you've had a couple months now to kind of have this thing going. What is going well that you planned back in the day? What's going well? Like we hit the nail on the head. And what's one area of improvement that you think, we got to drop back 10, punt, and do something else moving forward?
So I'll speak from my perspective and turn it over to Jackson and Jim, who are always teachers every day and seeing it right in front of them. What I think is going well is we have the right people in the role. So we're really fortunate that the 9 content-focused coaches that we have, they are eager to learn. They're self-starters. They're out and about. And if they haven't heard from you yet, they're going to check in with you. And they're doing a lot of proactive things to engage teachers. And they're also being incredibly flexible and really willing to meet teachers where their needs are. It's been an unpredictable year, and they just fill in those ways to support teachers and students. So I think that is what's going extremely well. There's more to that, but I won't take all the answers. Yeah.
No, I would just echo actually what you said about collegiality, because I think the passion that our coaches have for really supporting their colleagues comes out every day that I'm working with them. And so they really just want to be helpful. They want to make an impact with students and with teachers. And so I think that, again, having the right people in those roles and hitting the ground running has really helped with that. And I think that in terms of one thing that we've had to adjust is really just, navigating kind of the coaching cycles, which was so new to us, right? And so that's been a process, but I think that we've got our direction and we're headed in our coaches are becoming more confident with that, right? So it was so new to them. They're like, I'm not an expert in this. How do I do this? And so again, that example that I shared with you about elite coaches still needing, or elite athletes still needing coaches was shared with them when they were voicing that to the consultants, that you don't have to be an expert at everything to still have your teachers benefit from the coaching process.
I would very much agree with Jess and Kristen. I think that collegiality piece, we have at College Grove, I know the high school does as well, standing weekly meetings. We're constantly talking about that standing weekly meeting. Back when we set it up, I wondered if it was too much, but it really has proven to be so valuable to have that time set aside every week to really focus on this role. And to Jess's point, in the area of growth is just continuing to work through what that coaching cycle looks like and refining that process.
Just one thing, of course, I forgot, is, you don't know what you don't know, right? And that's you realizing that's fine. Another thing that was, I really saw was that, some more people now, teachers that are taking leadership roles, which I think is great. I mean, being in a classroom is great, but it's like, right, but it's nice to see teachers who are taking leadership roles, and there's 9+, right? So I think that's great for the district to do that, to take your teachers and move to another level. Oh, yeah.
As our coaches are ready to start doing their own coaching cycles, do we have any sense yet as to whether our teachers are excited to jump in there, or if it's going to take a little bit of encouragement to get people to sign on to the process, or are we not yet?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. Again, just speaking for the high school, I know as our coaches have become trained and starting to talk and go into classrooms, we definitely have teachers that are looking forward to get more information. And I think that word of mouth is really powerful, right? So as one person tries some different pieces, other teachers are asking more questions. And so our coaches are doing aspects of it, right, without doing the whole coaching cycle until they've really completed the training. But I think it's great, the pieces that they're able to implement.
Very much the same. It's building that culture of coaching that it's you know, it's that collegiality piece. It's not evaluative. It's something along those lines. It's we're all in this together to improve both the coach and the teacher, that building capacity piece. So yeah, I think we've had some people very early on who were on board, and we're seeing that grow on a regular basis.
I was gonna say, I was thinking about that and how this is a hard year to kind of start that measure. People are already kind of feeling edgy about the year ahead, they have so much on their plates, and then now I have to suddenly in my room, like watching what I'm doing on top of it all. Like I'm just, so I would imagine that that would be some natural resistance. I don't want to sign up for a whole coaching session of anything most of the time, right? But I was interested, one of the comments said it changed the dynamics of the classroom. It felt more like a family. On one of your teacher comments. So I was curious about that in the sense that I'm sure you're not collecting this data since it's not the focus really. But looking ahead, I'd be interested to see if teachers felt like they were seeing some improvement in terms of behavioral issues in the classroom, in terms of referrals and how they felt about the culture. I know you're not gonna have like a hard number, right? And different classroom dynamics change that, but I would assume, you know, just like anything, when kids are engaged and instruction is at their level, where you see those things decreasing. Has anybody made any comments along those lines so far? It's just on the snippet level or not yet? It's too early.
Right now for us, it's more just kind of that snippet level. But I think having that second teacher in the classroom, the students have really responded very well to that. I know that our teachers have very much enjoyed that, and our students have as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you said it well, right? At first, there might have been some of that, a little bit of hesitancy of, okay, what is this going to be like having another adult in the room? And as they try it, they're really embracing it. And I think it does create that really nice environment for them and for the kids. And so there's just been so much positive feedback as they've tried that.
And sometimes teaching can be lonely. You can be in the middle of a lesson and think to yourself, I don't know if this is going well. And you saw it happen in a couple of the video clips where the two adults in the room had a chance to come together, have a little conversation, and then we do some work. So they have that immediate feedback of somebody else to say, you know what, I think it's going really well for this group over here, but let's check in over here and there are more eyes in the room. That's immediately helpful, I think, for any teacher to engage in reflective practices. Because a lot of times when I was in the classroom, I wondered, is this going as well as I think it is? And you sometimes wait to see the student work to know the answer, where if someone like already tested on ideas off of it, it can be really validating, and it can also be very helpful.
Yeah, or I'm dying here. Can somebody
Right.
from the line? You
I
know?
want days like that too.
Right, like I'm just dying here. I can't get an answer. And I think as we move forward, because people are going to be leaving, like, you know, there won't always be two teachers in the classroom. The theory is right, like you build. Yeah, I can't find the right word. Capacity wasn't quite what I was looking for, but I agree. But right, that you're going to see that. I just wonder if we see that same student engagement that we see with two adults in the room. You know, once we kind of get the more learning, teaching the content, breaking things down to individual levels.
And I think that's our goal with the culture piece, right? Is to really have that, you know, lasting culture where teachers can have more than just the passing conversation that they have in the hallway about how a lesson went, but they have that really purposeful conversation where they can support each other, even if we don't have coaches in those roles, but our teachers, you know, I think, you know, Dave, as you said, that they're taking risks, right? We see our coaches taking risks, and so our teachers are seeing that model, and then they're going to take a risk too. And having a second adult in the room, whether that's a coach or whether that's a colleague, is what we're hoping, you know, lasts after.
Well, and the safety of being able to say, boy, I blew that, right? But we don't always, we don't have a culture always that allows us to say that. Like, that really went poorly, you know? What can I do next time? Well, I say that a lot. Like, boy, I blew that one, you know? But you have to have that built in for people to feel safe to be able to do that. So it sounds like that this is starting to create that, which is excellent.
Very much so.
And I will tell you, I'm a little jealous of your tool that breaks questions down to see the content, because I will tell you, it's the U of R, so where's my U of R colleagues? I'm doing that by hand, so, you know, question by question. So I'm a little jealous.
So I got a question on participation. We talked about full cycle and some are just little bits of it. What level are we at? 50%, 90% of teachers having gone through a full cycle, or just having little aspects of it?
So in terms of timeline, sorry, in terms of our timeline, we're still at the piece where our coaches are really kind of practicing with their consultant and then starting to transition into kind of being in that coaching role with the coaching curriculum itself. So I would say that we've had a couple of our coaches work with colleagues, a willing colleague participant. That's kind of our goal right now. So that's not kind of where we are right now, but where we hope to be soon.
Each of our coaches have experienced a full cycle with our consultant and hopes to learn that process.
They've been doing a lot of the other services that we showed in the beginning. There's been a lot of their work focused there. And quite frankly, that's building some really great customer relationships that I think will make people more open to this whole cycle too. We will be surveying teachers at the end of each year that we have our coaches to gather information about how many people did engage, in what ways did they engage, how many times did they engage, to give us some information and inform our rollout for year 2.
So the next one, I'm very excited about what you guys are doing and what we're seeing. And I don't want this to sound like it's a negative thing, but this is a 3-year program. Have we been putting thought in? I saw the e-doctrine, it went out to 2024. That was the first year of implementation. Have we been trying to build in something that allows us to keep this going beyond that in a way that is sustainable?
Yeah, so I think, that long-term benefits, the idea of the coaches working with content teams to really have those evidence-based conversations of looking at student work. And then the culture, again, hopefully that we're able to establish the comfort level for teachers to have other colleagues in their classroom and engaging in some of those conversations to reflect and really embrace, a growth mindset and feedback in a safe way for them to engage in that with each other.
I can just say to tag on Kevin, first thing is close the learning loss gap is kind of one major strands. And secondly is to really improve on teaching. So we have really, really good tier 1 teaching. Really good tier 1 teaching produces really good students, and that in itself, all the student body would improve. So the tide rises all boats. So in a 3-year shot, that's just, I can't speak for anyone here, but that's what you're hoping to close the gap, better teach, better students. That affects everybody.
No more questions? Jim, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'd like to invite Jonathan up now and we'll go through our board policies and 2000 series that was shared with the board in our news and notes.
Was there 3,000 or 6,000?
3.
3. Oh, sorry, my bad.
Sorry.
I had asked him. So yes, it was written as 3,000, but when Jonathan sent out the list, it was all 6,000 numbers.
Yes. If you remember, we did these pre-COVID 2 years ago. We had a number of personnel policies. Jamie and I then were able to go back and go through them systematically now. When we made changes 2 years ago, we did use what I had found were Erie 1 sample policies from other districts. So there are some that we have to make no changes to, unless Erie 1 gives us new updated policies at the end of this, during this review cycle. But for the most part, the questions that I received were minimal with respect to some of these, like this one was with respect to.
You're reviewing today? A lot of my comments might have been.
Yeah. Yesterday, yes. And we reviewed them today. Jamie and I went through them. But the grievances policy had to do with, that's language which is consistent with our other contracts, really about where the grievance originates, which is usually with the supervisor, not necessarily location, but it's kind of understood with the unit members and the union that the grievance starts with the person as opposed to necessarily the location. Then a number of questions about employee medical examinations. Ms. Brown, you did ask a question about COVID testing. So the EEOC did say that COVID testing is a medical examination that came out in June of 2020, I think. But they have said that they differentiated between COVID antibody testing and COVID viral testing, which we are allowed to do. So the COVID antibody testing is a medical examination, but they also at that point were saying that even a temperature scan was a medical examination. So they did allow some of us, I presume, because of the threatening nature of COVID and how it was understood at that time. But we would not be using that necessarily in the ADA context to prevent someone from coming back to work. We are allowed to ask if they have been vaccinated or tested or if they're positive, but it's not the same context as using it as to whether an individual can perform the duties of the job with or without an accommodation. Now, if there's a long COVID situation or other medical issues, then I can see that kind of coming in, but not necessarily just the COVID test itself. And then there was a question about physicals. From what I could find, a DOT physical is good for up to 24 months. But the Article 19A physicals, which our drivers are subject to, is an annual physical.
But was there any reference to that in the actual policy? Was there anything that contradicted the policy or the CDL that the commercial driver's license did the language in the policy the way it was written actually cover that?
I think it just focused on the drivers and it didn't touch on the other individuals. They're all subject to regulations from the Federal Motor Carrier Association.
So you're suggesting it doesn't need to be in there?
Correct.
Okay.
The only individuals that are covered by that, I believe, are grounds crews who drive bigger trucks. The rest of the individuals that we have are bus drivers. Certificated license under Article 19A of the traffic code. So. Then we had a question about possession briefly, or rather sharing of prescription drugs. I put a note in the OneNote. I just felt that once that individual takes possession of a drug, even if it's not their prescription, they are in possession and that act itself is illegal. But it is also illegal to share a prescription drug with someone else when the drug is prescribed to you, especially under more so with controlled substances. Because that's where we're going to be seeing this is with illicit drugs, but then it becomes the act itself, the possession is where we would have them, not necessarily kind of like the buy of it, if you will, or the taking possession of it. And then Ms. Stone, you had a comment about the drug-free workplace. So there was an error, but it was actually, the intent was to delete one more word, which was right before that. Because in a number of the policies that we've been reviewing from Erie 1, they are deleting the lines that indicate that the administration should enact regulations to implement the policy. I don't know if that's because they are later not having a regulation, which we will go down that road once we finish the policy manual. So my intent was just to delete it to be consistent with that, so that there's no question. I don't know. I have not seen what their new regulation manual will ultimately be, that we would be going through now. So it could be left in, it could be taken out. Either way. It was just, I suggested I could take it out because it'll be consistent on the other ones. Minor changes that I noted that we can make on professional growth. The fingerprinting clearance of new hires. So I put some notes in the OneNote with respect to this one. So it's been a couple of years since I dealt with it, but prior to digital fingerprinting, a lot of districts were using an emergency conditional appointment process because it could take 6 to 8 weeks to get an approval from the state before the digital fingerprinting. Once the digital fingerprinting went into place, we're getting clearances in anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. So it's very rare now that we use that emergency conditional appointment process at all. So the changes that were there, there was a comma that we needed to remove, but we put that in there because we had added that other line in there, so the comma just kind of slid over. But there is a process where the individual can start 5 days before the board appoints the person to the position. So at that point, then the board would appoint the person subject to fingerprint clearance. When on the board agenda, or I'm sorry, on the personnel. So we still have that there if that scenario does arise, but it's much more limited than it used to be. Does that help?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have a policy where if you were a conditional or emergency hire, you never got fingerprinting. But it sounds like that's not the case under any scenario.
No, not now. Everybody, I didn't say everybody. There is a class of people who do not, and I put it in the one note. There are individuals, if they do not work in a school building with students for 5 days, or some of our student employees, they don't necessarily have to be fingerprinted.
Right.
But in anyone who is required to be fingerprinted, is going to get fingerprinted as part of the audit, as part of the application process.
Is there a number of days that it has to be completed by? So if somebody's hired conditionally and fingerprinting has been done in an emergency, does it have to be cleared within 30 days, 60 days? Is there a timeline or no?
So they can only start working 5 days prior to board approval. And sometimes we do get pending clearance. It takes a little bit longer to process, but it's only the 5 days. And so when that happens, that's on the board agenda that they're pending New York State fingerprinting clearance. But we don't let them start any sooner than that.
That's what okay.
Correct.
So they're not, the approval can be 5 days before, but they're not in a building or in a, until it comes through.
Correct.
Okay.
I think that was pretty much it, except for one question about registration and professional development. Just the title names, permanent versus professional. It's really date driven. Permanent was the prior terminology, and now it's transitioned to professional certificate. So it's really just SED has just changed the terms, and we still have individuals who fall in the first category. So
I do want to talk about 6311.
Yes.
So you want to share what the state says and what Lori and I both think we ought to be doing?
So 6211 was the employment of relatives of board members. So the policy that was enacted in 1999 is very similar except for one line. And the policy indicates that teachers pursuant to law must be teachers who are relatives of board members must be approved by a 2/3 vote of the board. At some point, something happened in 1999. The board added an additional line that applied that 2/3 vote of the board to all relatives of board members, not just teaching there. So the question that I posed to the board members was whether or not we wanted to repeat that. I didn't see a reason to get rid of it, but I figured I'd ask the question as to where we wanted to go with that. And the feedback that I received from 3 of you was that we should retain that and remain consistent and ask for a 2/3 vote of the board members to employ essentially any employee who is a relative, a close relative to the board member.
So as I'm hearing you, I guess you have to define relative. Is it like immediate family, husband, wife, first cousin, second cousin, or where do you draw a line?
Isn't there a definition somewhere in the policy?
Oh, it's okay.
that
That's
would-
right.
It's going to be immediate family.
Okay, got it.
And it's on the employment application,
Okay.
so that's how we're.
Right.
But yeah, so keeping that, now that we have it, reconfirm that once that goes through, it'll be consistent with what we had before. And I think that was it for those policies. There was no questions about anything. No. All right. You get on a couple.
So I think it's really important. I've learned so much going through this level of detail. And I appreciate everyone reading through these things. I know it's a great effort to go through these to the level, but I think it adds to, definitely added to my level of understanding of what our role is here as a board and what our expectations are. So I encourage you to read through it as we're going through, so you can hear as we're hearing these little modifications, these changes. And Jonathan, attaboy, I don't know how you do it, how you tolerate all this stuff, but I guess that's your background. That's what you do. But thank you so much. For your report? Okay, meeting evaluation, how did we do?
Very well.
Good. No comments or great comments? Okay, Lori?
I make a motion that we convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing the employment history of particular persons.
Mr. Breckman, all in favor? Still here?
I think she's off.
So, 5-0. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening.